Welcome to the Bookbibuli podcast. Hello, folks. This month, we take a look at some book series. Mind you, these series are famous. They have their movie adaptations or series on OTT platforms, but they were famous even before that for the sheer genius of their author. Also, all these series have the main protagonist as a kick-ass female character. And with us throughout the month shall be 4 equally smart young ladies who shall be reviewing these books. Let us welcome Zitin and hear what she has to say about our first series. It's called Shadow and Bone. Welcome on board, Zitin.
Hi, I'm Zitin. I'm in 9th grade and I've always possessed love for literature and books. My favorite genres are the mystery and fantasy genres, and I've enjoyed reading ever since I was 5 years old. So I was really happy when I was asked to do this podcast because discussing books has got to be one of my favorite things to do.
What do you think of the idea versus execution in this book series, Zitin? Did it really live up to your expectations?
I honestly really enjoyed it. I will admit it gets a bit slow in the second book, but I think that's because that's the middle of the book and that's the build-up. The idea of having this magical world and an orphan girl being in the middle of it is a very common book trope, but for the time it was written in, it was very exciting, and I personally loved it very much. The characters and the storyline was very gripping.
I felt that Darkling's obsession with Elena was kind of disturbing, even bordering on being pedophilic, if I can use that word. How did you feel about it?
Yes, his obsession with Elena was disturbing. After all, she was just a 17-year-old and he was hundreds and hundreds of years old. And so in the beginning you think, what business does he have with this orphan girl? Some could say that he was just using her for his gain and he didn't care about the age. However, in my opinion, it was a bit concerning. Nevertheless, it was interesting to see it all play out.
Okay, so what do you think of Alina's personality? Like, is she a bland, a typical damsel in distress, or something else to you?
Like I previously said, for the times and the year this book was written in, it was good and people might have liked Alina and found her character interesting. But to me, I found her quite boring and annoying at times. She had such a low self-esteem in the beginning, but I suppose it was because of her being an outcast, but seeing her make wrong decisions constantly really frustrates the reader. Then in the end, she made up for everything and she finally felt confident and powerful in herself. And she fought the Darkling, which could be seen as a sense of inspiration for the youth reading.
Zitin, I totally agree with your assessment. I felt the same about Alina's character. Now let's talk about the relationship between Bhagra and Hasan. By far, I found that equation to be the most interesting.
That's an interesting question. Bhagra and the Darkling's relationship was quite complicated. I wouldn't describe that mother-son duo and their relationship to be exactly white or exactly black. I think it was grey. I do believe that there was a point in time where they both loved each other. Bhagra's love was not unconditional as a mother's love should be. I think she tried to protect the Darkling in her own ways, but I do hold her partially responsible for the Darkling's villain origin. There's this famous quote, "Know that I loved you, know that it wasn't enough." I think this quote was so sad and it makes me think and it makes me believe that there was some scope of improvement for the relationship. But anyway, we never really got to see that, but it would have been nice.
Fine, make me your villain, says Darkling. And what a villain is he. Totally swoon-worthy. So, what do you think about Darkling? Is he just a truly interesting villain? Or an interesting character without the villainous characteristics? Or an anti-hero? What do you think?
In my opinion, the Darkling was a very interesting villain because we get to see his villain origin and we get to read about how he wasn't always a villain. And I think he was manipulative and toxic, but it was interesting to notice that he started off as someone who wanted to protect people like him, people with the same powers and abilities like him. So while he hurt so many people, he actually believed that the collateral damage was good for the greater good. He even says this famous quote, "Fine, make me your villain," which only tells us more about his blindness to his own evil. The way his kind was treated led him to create the Fold, which was a tool for him to use against his enemies. I don't believe that the way he was treated justifies his evils, but it really gives us both the sides of the story and not just the one. But all in all, he was a very interesting villain to read.
Okay. What did you think about the different types of Grishas? And would you like to be one? And which one?
There are 3 types of Grisha: corporalky, etherealky, and materialky. Each is further divided into more subparts. I find them particularly interesting and attractive in the series because they add such a fun element to the book. Obviously, because the book revolves around them and their world, but it was really fun to read. If you actually think about it, the Grisha are such valuable assets to their army and so important in their world, but it's so ironic that most people in that world look down upon them. My personal favorite was the corporalky and the healers, specifically because I somehow like the idea of being able to heal people in some way.
Okay, now I found Nikolai the best character. He carries the books on his shoulders, especially the second one. He inherits the throne despite being illegitimate. He has a sharp sense of humor, which he seems to delight on using on his weak and vacillating brother Vasily. What about you? Who's your favorite character?
I 100% agree. Nikolai was by far the best character for me too. I just loved the fun, witty banter between him and other characters, and his sarcasm was so entertaining to read. I was so happy when he was crowned king because he was exactly the type of king Ravka needed. And his character, he was smart, funny, and a king. What more can you ask for?
So right. He has quick-wit, bravery, and a hidden heart of gold. Moving on, tell me, what did you think about the metaphorical battle between the darkness and light as represented by Alina and the Darkling?
I think that Alina symbolizes light. She represents hope, prosperity, and happiness, as opposed to the Darkling, who symbolizes darkness, which represents death and chaos. It was very apt for there to be a fight between Alina and the Darkling, as it really supports and it talks about the true battle between good and evil, which is really relevant to real life, and that in the end, good always wins.
How do you find your next read, Zitin? What's your process?
I look into the usual: ask an acquaintance, read the reviews on the book site, go to the bookshop, ask the reviews from a bookshop owner, read the reviews from another site, check the recommended reading list, get confused and flip a coin. Heads, peer over the shoulder of the kid. Tails, pause till we get lucky. Or get book guidance by Bookbibuli.
Thank you so much, Zitin. It has been a pleasure to have you with us. And to the rest of you. Surrounded by enemies, the once great nation of Ravka has been torn in two by the Shadowfold, a swath of near impenetrable darkness crawling with monsters who feast on human flesh. When her regiment is attacked on the fold and her best friend is brutally injured, Alina reveals a dormant power that saves his life, a power that could be the key to setting her war-ravaged country free. Wrenched from everything she knows, Alina is whisked away to the royal court to be trained as a member of the Grisha, the magical elite led by mysterious Darkling. There is, like I told you, the first book has been converted into a series and is available on Netflix. You can watch it. But before I sign off, I think we need to give an honorable mention to two people there. One is the Darkling and two is Nikolai. Nikolai is the best character in the series, according to me, as well as Zitin. He was the perfect balm on the a little boring romantic pairing, and especially at that point in the time of the story. He provides the story the insight on the human's thoughts on the Grisha and demonstrate his quicksilver brain and tongue throughout the second two books. The second, of course, is the Darkling. And as I remember Chris Colfer saying it in his famous series, a villain is nothing but a victim whose story has never been told. So I recommend you guys go back and read the prequels of Shadow and Bone. Also, there is an associated series called Six of Crows, which again I think most of you will find very entertaining. So go for it, my friends. Shadow and Bone is a series of an incredibly interesting idea based on Russia, and its execution is equal to it. It is a slightly controversial thought, but it has excellent characters, a solid villain, and a story to tell. So go hear the story. Until next weekend, happy reading!